Oh, there we go. All right, I get it now. Pet, you are on mute though, dude.
Hey, I couldn't get
I
my
was.
mic to work. How do you guys hear me? Good?
Yeah, dude, you're coming across just fine. That's
Okay,
perfect.
perfect.
Definitely fine for now. All right, so this is a bit of a different one. I just got like sick of having to drive 25 minutes to go record a podcast and pay an obscene amounts of money to have to do it every time we did an episode. And I knew if we had Ryan on, we'd have to do it at least partially remotely anyway. So why not do this? And Pet, you did an Arsenal podcast the other day using this platform, right?
Yeah, and it was very, very good. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. It's gonna be smooth.
Your audio sounds shit.
Really.
Yes, it sounds like echoey.
Mm,
I can't even tell that you're sick.
How's this?
That is much better. There you go.
Uh,
What did you change?
awesome. I'm using the sound from my earbuds, but clearly the mic from the earbuds isn't working very well. So yes, similar problems to Ryan.
Okay, awesome. So just so that everyone watching knows, the basic premise of this is that Pro Physique Transformation Challenge has started on Monday. I've not participated as a coach in the Transformation Challenge for a good, I think, 3 or 4 occasions now. But because Fats joined the team and she's coaching and she's participating in the challenge and she has a bunch of clients in the challenge, she convinced me to do it as well. And it just kind of got me thinking again that bare bones beginners that have never really done this before, they don't know what to expect. And if you don't know what to expect, very often just general challenges that everyone will encounter and everyone will come up against, whether it be a fat loss phase for a lifestyle client or whether it be a contest prep for an athlete, they see these as these huge insurmountable tasks that mean, oh, I actually can't do this anymore. I actually have to pull out and I need to do it at a different time. And when I was thinking, who can I speak to about this that I think has a really good perspective on both, Ryan immediately came to mind. Because Ryan, you haven't been competing for like a super long time. I think your second and third shows ever were like recently, correct?
Yeah, I've only been doing this for like a year, and I think I've done 4 shows now.
4 shows. So we've done 2 together, right?
Yes.
And you did 2 prior to that.
Yes.
Okay, so
Ryan's almost done as many shows as I have.
That's actually pretty. How many shows have you done now, Pets?
Only done 5.
There you go. And you've been doing it for how many years?
Since 2021. So yeah, having
That's
to
Ryan
take time
rushed.
off to improve.
Ryan rushed it.
Yeah, I wasn't
Ryan's killing
organized.
it.
I jumped in thinking I actually jumped in thinking it was just about working out and actually thinking I had to get bigger. And it was just completely unorganized. So yeah, I just jumped in and I was like, hey, I think I'll do a show in like 4 or 5 months. And that was right after I started and by far not ready.
All right, cool. Well, I think that's a very good jumping off point. It's like, give us a little background of kind of how and why you got into the sports. And I think important to clarify that when you got into it, you probably didn't even get into the sport. You just got into training. You got into fitness. What was the motivation behind that?
Well, for the longest time, I've always used activities as mental health escapes, just kind of a way to get out of my own head. And I was a marathoner for, I'd say 3 or 4 years. I did, I think, like 9 or 10 marathons and grew tired of it. And I just stopped. And I needed something to do and was into the gym a lot. And believe it or not, I was in Las Vegas for Super Bowl Sunday, I think 2 years ago, maybe a year ago. Had been a year ago. And there was a OCB show. And my friend was out there and she's like, hey, I'm in Vegas doing this show. You should come by and see it. I was like, who doesn't want to go see a bunch of hot ladies working out and showing off their things? And, you know, I walked in and I got there early because I always get places early, and the men were up on the stage, and I was like, hey, you know what? I wonder if I can do this. And it started as kind of a goal setting thing. And then you start feeling that vibe just in the room. And you can just feel the support from everybody in there. People had signs, and it was kind of an adult. It was a step into like the adult hype that you get from your friends and family. You know, once you move into like life, you don't really, unless you're an elite athlete, you don't really get to participate in anything where your friends and family hype you up for something. And I was just drawn to that feeling. So that kind of started the journey. I stumbled into a show, and once I got past the point, oh, you don't have to wear a man thong, you can wear board shorts. I was like, I'm in.
That's hilarious. All right, so you see the show,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems like something that you'd be interested in. How do you even go about starting? Like, what is point one?
I think I just Googled coaches, and I wasn't really getting any. I wasn't getting any like good success over that. And there was a guy at work who I'd heard was into bodybuilding, and he was like, "Hey, you need to talk to this coach." And it was more of almost like a cookie cutter coaching, where it was, "Hey, I know what I need to do for you. You need to eat 4 ounces of ground beef and 2 cups of rice, and then we'll slowly increase that." And before I knew it, I was probably eating like 4 pounds of meat a day. And just too much
the same way. It's very comforting.
Bro, it was funny because I was eating so much. I'd be sitting at my desk and I would start salivating like I was getting ready to throw up. And I'm like, I don't even feel nauseous. So I almost left the sport at that point because I was like, I think this is too hard for me. I didn't understand it. So going back to my friend who had competed in Las Vegas, she was like, hey, I asked her, I was like, hey, here's what my issues are. I've always been a non-eater. I miss meals. My anxiety gets up. My ADHD will fire off. I'll get up in the morning, and then before I know it, it's 6 o'clock at night. I'm like, shit, I forgot to eat. And
the opposite to me.
she's like, bro, you need a coach. I was like, I have a coach. She goes, no, you need to go to you need to use ProPhysique. You need to jump on ProPhysique and fill out this survey. And that's when I stumbled across you, Matt, in December. So
that's awesome. When you came across me, you had already done a couple of shows.
Yeah. So just out of probably routine, I knew there was a Las Vegas show. So I'd actually trained for the Pot of Gold OCB competition in Las Vegas. I think it was in like March of 2021. I think it was, or no, where are we at? 2024. So it had to have been 2022. And I did that show, and then there was another show in San Leandro in California, which is actually the city I work in. And I was like, hey, how cool would it be I'm a police officer in San Leandro. I was like, hey, it'd be cool. I serve the community. I want to show the community like what I can do as far as a commitment, not just to them, but to myself. So that's when I jumped into that show. And then once I got with you, Matt, I was like, I need to do those same 2 shows as kind of like let me compare and contrast.
Yeah,
that's the right approach for sure. I mean, it's a different conversation, but really the only measure of success. I know everyone wants to win and turn pro and all that stuff, but really the true measure of success is like year to year, are you actually making progress? Because I mean, in theory, you could do the same show 1 year and another year, and you could come in worse in the following year, but get a better result. So that doesn't necessarily mean that you're progressing. But as somebody that is pretty damn new to the sport, and that's you see, that's why I thought of you. It's because a lot of people will say when they start this process, they're a beginner, they're not competitors. They will always say, well, you know, don't look at me like one of the bodybuilders. But the point is, you are that person. You are a bodybuilder. You are competing, but your process, regardless of you getting onto stage as an end result, is a very good proxy for what any average person should do to get into the kind of shape that they want. The only difference is that the end result may not be getting on stage. So when you started, and Pet, you can answer this too, because, you know, like you said, you've only been, people's perception of you is you know, is a really seasoned competitor, just on the basis of what you've achieved and what you look like, but you're also actually pretty new to the sport. So
yeah, definitely.
In the initial stages, when you're starting out, what were the biggest obstacles, challenges that you encountered? The things that made you go, I'm not sure if this is for me. I'm not sure if I can do this.
Is that for me, Matt?
Both of you, but you can start, Pet.
All right. So I think for me, starting out, the accessibility to the diet was one thing that I had to consider. Although I've been competitive for a short period of time, the whole nature of dieting is something I've tried to follow for quite some time, you know, since I've had an interest in the sport. I mean, I have these odd memories pop up on my phone showing me, you know, having like brown rice and a couple cans of tuna, you know, oats with like chicken breast on the side. In high school, I was known to eat like egg yolks, trying to get all my protein in. Sorry, not egg yolks, egg whites and whole eggs. So yeah, the journey for me was always about, can I control the food I eat? And living at home, there was no way. Like my parents weren't gonna firstly pay for all the food you need to eat, because like Ryan said, there's a lot of food, you know, that you need to eat. Maybe not as much as our initial coaches made us eat, you know, the way they made us eat, but there was a lot that you had to consider and put aside so that you could be hitting your goals. And living at home, that just wasn't going to be possible. So you make lemonade. And eventually I got to the point where I started making my own money. I started working. And literally in my first year of working is that I was like, I can afford the food. I can afford my own gym membership. I can do all of this stuff for myself. So I'm going to jump in and make sure that I put everything in place to execute properly. And I think making sure that you go in with the right resources is very important if you want to make sure this is successful.
100%. 100%. And then obviously, Ryan, you started a little bit later. It wasn't like I'm a teenager and my parents don't want to buy me the food. You have a pretty unique job, one that I imagine is pretty schedule, time, resource intensive. How did you manage the demands of training, cardio, food preparation, etc. within that context?
You know, it's interesting because the diet is actually exactly what that was saying was the biggest challenge for me, because of my profession, we sometimes don't have access to like microwaves or stoves or just the ability to prep. And when you look at a schedule of, oh, you have to eat a certain number of macros, and I started with a meal program because I was like, oh, macros sounds too challenging. I think that I was so used to just grabbing burritos, and I don't know the access in South Africa, but in America, there's a food truck on every corner, and every food truck you can scrape the bad nutrition off the side of it. So I'm 24 years into my profession, and for 24 years, it's burritos, it's little diners with like greasy food. Even the healthier choices are pretty like fatty, greasy foods. So I honestly didn't think I was going to be able to stick to the nutritional side of it. But honestly, I think learning how macros works, and I'm also an Oreo cookie fan, just like our boy Rico. Man, I would eat an entire package of Oreos at least every other day. gone every other day. But it was, I thought it was going to be very challenging with food, and there's also a lot of peer pressure, because when you're in our profession, we look for any opportunity to have camaraderie with our coworkers. And that means we go to restaurants and we don't eat a bunch of donuts, which is kind of an American tongue-in-cheek joke about cops.
I would totally do that.
It's tongue-in-cheek, but man, I swear that at every meeting there's like three dozen donuts, and I would kill for a maple bar. But we sit down with each other and we drink tons of coffee. We eat just the worst foods ever. And I was a little
not Americanos, right?
What's that?
Not Americano coffees, like.
Oh no, we drink Americanos.
Oh, okay. I was wondering, because when I hear about coffees in the States, it's like, you've got the creamer in there, you've got all these sugary
spice latte,
exactly.
Don't get me wrong. There are some tasty choices. But typically at work, I'm just straight black coffee. It's just the easiest, it's fastest. But yeah, I thought for sure there'd be some stigma attached to it. Like, we're not going to invite Gil to hang out because all he eats is rice and chicken. So you start having this like social aspect of, man, I don't want to be that person. I'll just go eat this one meal with them. And I thought for sure I would just keep cheating on my meal plan. But in a weird sort of way, everybody was so interested because they became addicted to watching my process. And every day people were asking me, how much do you weigh? Hey, what are you eating today? When I switched from rice to pumpkin puree, they're like, that's so nasty. Pumpkin puree? Nobody eats that crap. And then I walk through the office and I see people eating pumpkin puree. So
because they like see your progress and they don't go, oh, it's because calories in, calories out, energy balance. They're like, there's something magical about pumpkin puree.
Yeah.
Man, pumpkin puree with a buttload of pepper on it, there's nothing like it. But that's my craving. That cuts my craving, is pumpkin puree with pepper.
Fair enough. So, all right. So then the first question from that is, with regards to the schedule, because what I imagine is that you're kind of out on the road all day, or at least most of the day.
So sometimes I do both, office and out on the street.
Okay. So either way, you're not at home. It's not like you're working at home. So how did you make that transition from, okay, well, I'm just going to eat as it comes up when I'm driving around and here's this food truck, here's this restaurant. How did you make the transition to, okay, I'm going to have to actually prep my food now? How do you go about handling that?
Oh man, I think it took a very long time for me to fall into like the prep side of it. I don't like the cleanup. Like I don't mind cooking the food. I'm terrible at cooking food. I probably eat the most bland, overcooked food ever. And it's always just
That's good, bro. Make your food taste good.
But that's it. As time went on, I would watch my friend, who again, she's been competing for a while, and she has like wild meals. Like she'll do like ground bison or ground turkey with like taco seasoning and like cottage cheese with blueberries on top, all mixed together like one meal. And she's like, here, taste this. And all of a sudden I'm like, Jesus, you can make this food taste good. And then my mind's like, you could throw anything together. So I would literally like set my macros out, and I would just throw everything into like a piece of a container, and it would literally not be any specific meal. It would just be my macros. And I knew that I had to get a certain number of macros. So then that's what made it easier, is you realize that you don't have to have like an actual strategy behind it. You just have to get it done. And it became easier.
And it's going to be different. It's going to be different from person to person. Like you work at home like 4 days a week, right?
Yeah, 3-4
days a week. So you're like me in the sense that you have the luxury where it's like, great, like worst case scenario, I have some chicken prepped, I have some ground beef prepped, but everything else I can kind of choose on a daily basis what I feel like, and I have a minute to prepare it or whatever the case is. But if you're out of the house, out of the office, if you're traveling or if you're driving around, you kind of have to know what you're going to eat on a particular day ahead of time and have that prepared for you. So Ryan and Pet, when you guys are looking at, like, let's just say protein sources, how would you go about prepping your protein for the week? Would it be like a daily basis thing, or would it be I'm prepping this for the entire week?
Oh no! Like I've never been one who likes cooking. If I cook, I struggle to eat. So for me, it was always best for me to cook everything in bulk. And then, I mean, from the beginning of my journey, I was cooking hake by, like, the tray. At the very least, I was on a hake diet pretty much the whole time. And then making sure you
names, but I don't know.
just making sure you have it all there is just very convenient. You cook, especially like you said, having your lean sources of protein, because those are the hardest to cook in a short period of time, right? Especially if you like to have them seasoned and like really make them yummy so that they fit onto every other what you call carb source that you'd like to add to it. So yeah, like I said, at the start of the week, I would make, or on a Sunday, I'd cook a few trays of hake, put them in a glass Tupperware, because I found that glass actually makes the food last longer. Pop that in a really cold fridge, and then just every evening pack out everything for the next day, so that by the time I get home, I just have my last couple of meals to eat, and I know that throughout the day I don't have to worry about it, because the less prepared you are, the more likely you are to fall off and make mistakes during the day, because then you have to make swap outs, and you find yourself in a situation where there's been a large gap between meals, and now you have to make a plan.
Absolutely. And you're Ryan, like, so you're basically just like, I'm going to experiment. I'm just going to make a bunch of foods, throw them in a Tupperware, and as long as I hit my macros, I'm good. But how do you go about preparing those foods in the first place? Is that like daily? Is it in advance? How long in advance?
Yeah, so food is still a struggle for me. Just because, like you said, I'm not typically like at home a lot, so I'll have to find like little shortcuts. So we have this grocery store called Sprouts, and they pre-prepare shredded chicken. So I'll go in and I'll buy like 5 or 6 pounds of shredded chicken, and then that way I can just go into the fridge and then quickly throw something together in the morning. That way I don't have to prepare the chicken.
I'm so jealous.
It's just rotisserie chicken. So it's plain. It's not seasoned. It doesn't have any like mystery sauce on it. It's just plain white chicken. And you can either get white meat or you can get mixed white and dark meat. I'm a fan of the white meat, but there's less bones in it. But
of course.
Yeah, it's clean. It's just, I'll do that, but then I'll have to figure out like the vegetable side of it. So I have to find little shortcuts, like going to Sprouts, which is a very nutritional, it's like a nutritious based store. So everything's fresher. Or because I think the US is kind of trying to fix the obesity problem here, there are so many like outlets of like delivered foods, or we have a place that actually our police department contracts with them. They'll deliver food to our police department, and it's all freshly prepared by the ounce, by the pound.
Oh wow!
So it's like made to order, which makes it super easy for us. And the kitchen they put it in is like 2 doors down from my office. So I don't necessarily have like a standardized, I cook it at the beginning of the week. Every time I cook something at the beginning of the week and I'm like, oh, I'm going to make this for the whole week and make it super easy, half of it goes bad. Just because I don't get to it. So I'm more like a daily guy.
But that's okay. So that is exactly the point that I'm trying to make here, is that most of people's excuses of I can't do this is I don't have the time, whether it be I don't have the time to train or I don't have the time to prepare my food. You're talking about Sprouts in the US. Whether you're at Sprouts in the US or you're in South Africa, I can guarantee you that there are enough available sources where you can buy pre-prepared food and come pretty damn close to your macros if you are willing to eat the same stuff, at least for the most part, every day. So what I'm trying to get at here is I don't have the time is really should be interpreted as I don't have the willingness to do what I need to do.
Yeah.
Really. I've had a lot of conversations with people that, in all fairness, have pretty average jobs in terms of like X amounts of hours per day. It's like, I understand you're in an office, you're there for 9 hours, you're busy, you have a high workload. So does everyone else for the most part. But then I look at, I don't know if you guys know Carmine, or if you remember Bobby, 2 guys that I coach, both competitors, both masters competitors. They're international pilots. So they're flying all the time, like 30-hour flights, 36-hour flights, spending then like 2 nights in freaking Helsinki and then, flying back. That is somebody that if they said to me, I don't have the time, I would be like, I kind of believe you. Yet somehow they make it work. You can always make it work if you have the willingness. Yeah, you may not be able to cook everything yourself. Maybe you're not going to be eating exactly what you would love to at every single meal. But I think by definition, that fat loss is going to come with some level of sacrifice. And if that's your sacrifice, that's your sacrifice if you want it badly enough, right?
Yeah,
well,
I think.
Go ahead.
No, go for it.
I would say I think it's interesting because at some point, I think most people who join this journey, initially it's the aesthetic. Oh man, I wish I had 6 packs, or I want to get shredded, or whatever it might be. But once you've committed to it, it's interesting because you're more addicted now to. It's not even an addiction. It's the consistency of wanting to take care of yourself, and it becomes a habit. So what's cool about the habit is, and I joke about it with a few of my friends, is I don't need it. It's nice to carry a scale, and I know not having a scale is a big hindrance, but you get into this lifestyle of you can just look at food and know, okay, I shouldn't eat that, or okay, that's exactly 4 ounces. So once you get into it, like 30 days or however long it takes you to commit to yourself, it's no longer an inconvenience. And I might not get to eat when I want to eat, but when I do eat, I know that what I'm eating is going to give me that end goal of being healthy. And like, I haven't won the last couple shows, but I've really won the last couple shows because with this lifestyle, I've still been able to visually say, okay, I can do this, I can't do this, or what's the satisfaction of eating an Oreo if in 2 seconds I'm hungry again, because it does nothing for me, when I can go eat a rice cake with a little bit of almond butter and it's actually satisfying and filling. It's just interesting.
Absolutely hit the nail on the head there. Pet, what was your point going to be?
Yeah, I think, look, Ryan made a few good points, that you need to be able to commit to yourself, right? This if you're doing it for any other reason but for yourself, I think you're going to struggle, because at the end of the day, bodybuilding, and you hear this said time and time again, but it's a 24-hour game, right? So you have to be on it and constantly choose the right things that are going to help you align with your goals. And other people in other sports have the luxury of, having the cupcake after practice or whatever the case may be. But unfortunately, because of where we're trying to go, if we're trying to compete, you may have to make those sacrifices. But at the same time, within the meal plan that you get, or within the macros that you get, there are ample opportunities for you to make substitutions and include that structured flexibility that allows you to, throughout the day, perhaps have more bland or more basic meals, and then later on in the evening, if that's when you prefer your snacks, fit those things in so that you can really enjoy them and still feel, covered holistically, and have your taste buds quenched, to say the least. But I think there's a desire for some people for this to be easier rather than simple. This journey is very simple. Everyone knows what comes in, what comes out. It's just putting everything in place for you to be able to execute that way might be a lot more difficult and might take some time. But once you get the swing of things after 30 days or so, you'll be good to go.
It's the initial, it's just that initial preparation. And for some people, it might be a week. For some people, it might be a month. For some people, it might be a little bit longer. But if you're starting out with the process, at least be willing to put in that initial work up front. And this is what I say to everybody when I send out their initial plans. It's like the first 2 or 3 weeks, don't be worried about your progress. Don't even think about it. Don't look at the scale. Don't look at your measurements. Track the data so that we have the data, but simply focus on getting to a point where you understand exactly, this is when I'm going to prep my food. These are the foods that I'm going to be eating. This is when I'm going to train. This is how I get my steps and my cardio. Because if you're having to think about that every day and you're eating different things and at different times and training at a different time and cardio at a different time, that's when you're like, fuck this. This is too hard. It's overwhelming. I don't want to do it. Spend the first few weeks establishing that routine so that you can go on autopilot. And then when you go on autopilot, then those behaviors become habits. And then it's not a challenge. Like I'm sure you guys, you get baffled when you hear like, oh, I missed training 3 times this week because I just didn't really feel like it. And for me, where I am in my life right now, I'm like, that's like somebody saying to me, oh, I didn't shower this week because I just didn't feel like it. It's like, no, dude, you do what you need to do because it is habit. It's routine. And that's the point that you need to get up. You need to get to with your bodybuilding and fitness goals. Is not relying on being motivated and being excited because that shit doesn't last. You need to just make those behaviors routines. You know what really annoys me? Let me tell you this. I want to hear this annoys you too. What really annoys me, that narrative of like, oh, it's cool. Everything can be 80-20. So eat well 80% of the time, and then you can fuck around 20% of the time. I understand the premise, okay? I understand the premise. So if you're saying, for example, because this is how I interpret it, if you're eating 2,000 calories a day and 1,600 calories are good, whole, nutritious foods, and the remaining is some Oreos, whatever the case is you want, that's cool, right? However, the way that people interpret that is, I'm going to follow a plan for 5 days, and then on Saturday and Sunday, I'm going to fuck off and eat absolutely everything. That isn't how it works. Because from an energy intake standpoint, then it's not 80-20. Then you're just blowing your calories for the whole week. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's why I like to liken it to a budget, right? Like a financial budget.
Yes.
Is that you have certain amount of money allocated to you. Say you're saving up for a car, saving up for a house, whatever the case is, and you just have to spend your money well, 80% of your money well, right? And the remaining 20%, be less responsible with it, but not spend, save up 80% of the time, and then in the 20% of the time that you have free, blow the rest of the money. So it's less about it's more about preserving, like you said, the energy that you're consuming, the foods that you're consuming in that 20%. Allocate 20% of your calories to less nutrient dense foods and focus more on focus more on trying to prime that 80% to be perfect. And then that 20%, give yourself an opportunity to enjoy the foods that you'd eat in the normal dieting phase, as long as they fit within this 100% budget that you've been provided.
Exactly. It's interesting because maybe my mind's thinking about the question differently, but if for like the 80-20 balance, I like to try to mix that. I don't like to look at it as 80 and 20. I like to look at it as I've got this budget, but I need 20% of it to actually satisfy me. And I just mix that 20% within my 80. So like all throughout the day, I'm like, okay, I know that at some point I'm going to get frustrated at work and that's going to give me some cravings. So let me make sure that my timing is right so that 1% of my lunch is tasty or sugary or something that satisfies that need. And
Yes.
I think once you've committed to learning how that 80-20% works and figuring out what satisfies your cravings, it makes it so much easier, because you're not saying, okay, I'm going to do 80% now, and then at nighttime I have a lot of cravings, so now I need to have a creamy. I haven't used my Ninja Creamy yet, but I heard it's delicious.
Oh,
but,
man.
It's sitting right over there on the counter. I've got some great recipes, but I think what happens,
be using that every night for your life.
So I think what happens is, when I budget 80, I'm gonna do 80 throughout the day and then 20% at night, and that's gonna be my treat. It gives me the opportunity to actually not do good. I'll be like, oh, I'll have this will be my treat, but I'm gonna put a little bit of peanut butter on it, and that little bit of peanut butter pushes me over. So I find that if I can just mix it 80-20, put that 20 kind of in my 80 throughout the day, it fixes everything for me.
All right, so let's stay on that note of treating your nutritional intake, treating your macros like a budget. I've obviously never used this platform before, but I'm gonna try and share my screen here.
This better not be a test.
No, it's definitely.
And careful what you share, man.
Definitely not a test, but I'm going to ask you guys to evaluate something, right? Okay, so do you see this? You guys see
Yes.
it?
Yes, we can see it.
Yes, indeed.
All right, so it's neither of you guys. Okay, so here are the macros. Here are the target macros, right? Moderate days, 190 protein, 45 fat, 190 carb. High days, 180 protein, 50 fat, 230 carb. This is a very, very good example of the biggest challenge that I encounter with new clients that say, yes, I know how to track my macros. Let me see if I can actually do this where I think we did something like this.
Here I am going, okay, calculating.
I was looking at it going, what do they get that I don't?
No, so the point I'm trying to make here is, if you look at this, the macros are all over the place, from 256 grams of carbs down to 200, 21 grams of fat as high as 65, 105 grams of protein up to 109. And this particular individual's perception is that if you kind of rate this up, he's saying, all right, my week was like 85% compliant versus what you asked me to do. All right. Now, I think all three of us know that that's not the case. Those numbers are all over the place. They're not even close to what the goals are. What would lead to that level of discrepancy on a day-to-day basis? Have you ever have I ever said to you, right, your goal is 45 grams of fat, and then you've come back to me and said, oh, well, the one day was 75, the other day was 22, the other day was 63, the other day was... No, right?
No.
So what leads to that?
God, I immediately jumped to lifestyle. Going back to what I was talking about with how my work is that there's the peer pressure of, hey, let's go have pizza for lunch, and there's this almost stigma attached to, I don't want to show up to pizza and have rice and chicken, and I use that as just kind of a generic, but
yes, a generic reference. Yes.
Yeah, it's a generic reference, and I think that people are too afraid to outwardly commit to everybody. It's kind of like I stopped drinking for 8 years at one point, and the hardest part was telling people I'm not drinking, which is kind of funny because that you should be proud of not drinking. 100%. And it's the same thing with like taking care of your own diet. If people are going to have pizza, let them have pizza. They're not on the journey we're on, and rather than almost put a stigma on yourself, hey, let them think whatever they think, but when they go to your show and they're like, hey, how'd you do that? It's like, hey, remember when we had pizza and I had chicken and rice? That's how I did it. So I would say I would say the fluctuation is it's a peer pressure type thing.
Okay.
And my thing is never about me and what I'm eating being like I'm missing out. It's more, I find that a lot of people feel like as you're eating your chicken and rice, people assume that you're judging them for eating the foods that they're enjoying in that time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like what you're doing has no bearing on my goals. And if we all had the responsibility of working towards one person's goals because they're doing that, we'd all be miserable, because we don't necessarily align with the other person's goals. But I'm having my chicken and rice because I'm trying to achieve a certain goal. It may not be forever, but regardless, it means something to me. And I want you guys to enjoy it because at the end of the day, I'm here to enjoy this experience with everyone. And me having this meal on the side isn't going to detract from that by any stretch of the imagination. I'm still having a great time,
Yeah. Well, and another point is, and we say it a lot in my profession, is at the end of the day, these people aren't going to be there to wipe your ass. So if you are injured and sick, your real friends are going to step up, but the majority of the people around you who invited you to pizza, they're not even going to send you a card. So you're really committed to yourself. And it's funny because I started thinking about Daniel Coffeen, the posing coach.
Yes.
He posted something the other day where his caption was, "First time I was kicked out for bringing my own food." And he was at a restaurant.
Yes.
And he got kicked out. And he's showing himself in the parking lot eating. And I was like, bro, that's fucking tight. Like, that's exactly how you should be. Like, hey, you want to kick me out? I'm going to go outside. I'm going to eat this shit. And I'm going to go back inside, which he did. And you look at the guy and the guy is just shredded. He's on his own journey and he's not embarrassed to go eat in the parking lot, which you shouldn't be. And again, nobody's going to hang out and wait for the end of your life. They're going to put you in a home, or you're going to be the old guy living at the house with your family. But none of these people are going to show up and say, "Hey, you want to come have pizza with me?" No. A lot of these like conveniences, it's a momentary satisfaction for them because they don't want to eat alone. And they want you to co-sign on their bad decisions. And
that was some deep shit that you just said. That is very, very true.
Yeah, I don't co-sign. I'll go find people that want to eat chicken and rice. and if you look around you, the people who are watching you, they're eating healthier. And like I work in our records division, and I've watched everybody start to bring healthier foods after they just spent the last year and a half like jabbing at me. "Oh, you're having pumpkin again, huh? You're having chicken again, huh? You're not cooking fish today, are you?" But now I'm watching them eating the same stuff and they're all getting healthier. So not only am I not co-signing on them, I'm selling them this lifestyle and this vibe.
That is awesome. That's
brilliant.
All right. So let me ask you guys a related but slightly different question. Okay. You're in a diet phase, fat loss phase, contest prep, whatever you want to call it. You send me a check-in and I change your macros. All right. I bring things down, bring down your carbs, bring down your fats. What is your first pass? How do you address that, knowing, okay, I'm going to have to implement that tomorrow or even today?
First, I call you and I cuss you out for dropping my food. But once that's done, I think the first thing is to look at the foods that I've been eating and look at how I can adjust them, right? Like you mentioned earlier, we've all got like these food groups these foods that we consume on a pretty regular basis. Whether people want to admit it or not, I doubt everyone is cooking an entirely new dish every single day, 365 days a year, right? So you'll have your dishes that you become accustomed to eating. And what I like to do is, start off the day by, if we reduce my carbs, for instance, all of my carb meals, I'll drop them by a percentage of what you've dropped my calories by for carbohydrates. And then for fats, everything that used to have fats in, drop it, and just make sure that I'm looking at planning the entire day and trying to be within that range so that I can sort of estimate it. And then by the end of the day, which is what not good practice, but at the end of the day, I like to say at dinner time, then have a recon and say, okay, this is about how much I have for dinner, because I don't mind having a smaller dinner than lunch and breakfast.
But the point that you're trying, the basic premise here is that you plan that shit ahead of time.
Oh, 100%.
So like a financial budget, or like your personal budget. This is my expendable income for the month, and I know that I want to buy this, and I know that I want to go out and do this. Therefore, I'm going to put this much money towards those particular things and events. I'm not going to just go out on a particular day, spend fucking crazily, and then come back home and go, oh my God, I'm now in my overdraft, right? That's the point that I'm trying to make. You want to, because this is a huge challenge, and I've seen at times I struggle to communicate it to people. It's like hitting your macros is not a challenge. You just need to plan ahead for it. And if you plan ahead for it, you're good to go. Of course, if you just go through the day and you're like, oh, I'm going to have a burrito here. I'm going to have a slice of pizza here. Oh, let me quickly have a protein shake. But now I'm going to eat 2 Pop-Tarts. Then it's 7 o'clock at night and you're like, oh shit, I'm 30 grams above my fat goal. How did that happen?
Yeah, that should never happen.
Maybe tomorrow will be different.
that should never happen. I like to look at it almost like going on a journey in a car. If you still have a gas powered car, and you think you have a full tank of gas, and then you go out and somebody had driven your car, and now you only have a half gallon of gas. You have to change where you're going. So you may have a goal of, okay, I'm going in California, Disneyland, but now I don't have enough gas to go to Disneyland. Now I just have to adjust what my destination is. Maybe I go to this other destination rather than Disneyland. So it's perfect because it deals with the fuel for the body. I mean, if you have to adjust your fuel intake, you got to adjust your fuel intake. You can't just have the same goal and be pissed because you can't get to Disneyland, because guess what? You just can't. You got to figure it out.
Absolutely.
It's so crazy that we have to think about all these metaphors to like put things into perspective, hoping that one of them resonates, but it's such a simple concept. Like it's not, I don't believe that any adult at the point at which you're working for yourself can look at like, a financial budget. If you were to put them in a hypothetical position, give them a budget and say, you have $1,000 to spend. You go into this mall, and I expect you to come back with this and this and this and this, and then the last item can be anything of your choosing. And then they'll come back to you and say, listen, I came back with the item of my choosing, but I didn't manage to get like 2 of the other things because this was a bit expensive.
That's exactly what it's like.
Well, it's funny because we're talking metaphors, but let's not talk metaphors. Talk food. You're only given X amount of food for the day. What happens when you're out of food? You're out of freaking food, bro. Like you don't get a choice. So if your coach is giving you 45 fat, you don't get 46 fat. You get 45 fat. And I know people do and Matt, you've gotten on me. It's give yourself a little bit of a slush fund, like 4 over or whatever it is. But my goal is I've got 45 fat. Like my goal is to go 45 fat. If I'm going over, like I did something wrong and now I got to adjust tomorrow, but it's all food based. It has nothing to do with like driving or money or any of that stuff. Like if Matt was sending us food, that's the food you get. It's up to you to split it up throughout the day. And that's that's
the coaching of the future is instead of setting you macros, somehow I can just get the exact food to hit those macros delivered to you. And you aren't allowed to access any other food that exists in the world. You can only eat what I send you. That would be amazing. Everyone would be shredded.
Okay, we're not posting this at all. This is our new concept. We're gonna do that.
I'm gonna edit that out because that's our business idea. Holy shit!
Got it. It would make it so much easier because I mean, really, food is the biggest crutch that everybody points to when it comes to the sport. Is the food. Nobody talks about, oh man, Matt changed how many reps I can do on my overhead press or whatever. We don't have overhead press, but or at least I don't. But nobody complains.
You definitely do not overhead press anything. No, you have trouble.
I don't. But you know what I'm saying? Nobody complains about the workout. Nobody comes in and says, oh, I wasn't able to lift that amount of weight, because nobody will shame themselves for how strong they are. But when it comes to food, like that's their crutch. It's, oh man, I can't get that food intake. Yeah, but you made it to the gym.
Well, I think you're being too generous, and you're maybe self-referencing here as well, because I can promise you there also are a lot of people that complain about having to go to the gym.
Yeah, I'm oversimplifying it, but I think for the most part, it's the food aspect of it. Because if it's I couldn't get to the gym, then they're also going to kill themselves about how much food they ate. Like, oh man, I ate all this food, but I didn't get my steps in, and that's when like you're walking that line of the body dysmorphia. Are my abs gone? So I think that majority of the problem with especially the lifestyle clients is I don't want to change the way I eat. There's not a lot of the gym complaints.
There we go. I think that is the biggest thing. And as much as you guys know, I mean, Pet, you specifically, because Ryan came into this process and he knew how to track his macros, and he was really good with it, and he was very accurate with it. It took a little bit of convincing for you to move in that direction. Okay. So you, of all people, know that I'm a big proponent of that way of doing things. Yeah. However, and this has nothing to do with the concept itself, and a lot more to do with just human nature, is we take a great concept and we take it too far, where it loses any sensible application. And people read about tracking macros, if it fits your macros, flexible dieting, and the impression that they get from that is, oh my God, I can eat whatever I want and lose body fat. Not, I can eat whatever I want within a certain range of macronutrients and calories and still achieve my goals. So then they get surprised when they're doing all the same things that they've done before and not getting results. It's like, you do realize something has to change.
Yeah, you can't track the foods you were eating before we started working together and say, just because I'm tracking the food I used to eat, I expect to make a difference, you know?
Tracking itself is not thermogenic.
Yeah. It would be fantastic. That's a business plan per se.
Exactly. Make tracking very like strenuous. So like just entering your food burns 1,000 calories. So Ryan, another thing that I wanted to touch on with you, because of your job, talk about, because I mean we've never really spoken about this. Talk about kind of like working hours in a typical week.
How many work hours do I work?
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking? It really varies. I'm in a position where my hours can change because I can get called out in the middle of the night. Typically we're working anywhere between 10 and 12 hours a day, 3 to 4 days a week, ideally. Mm-hmm. But for instance, I've routinely been getting to work at 6:30 and then leaving at 7. So what is that? Almost 16-hour days, 15-hour days or something like that, 4 days a week. And then the times that you've been coaching me, I think I've been called out in the middle of the night a bunch of times. I've had to do a bunch of funerals.
Many times. So
I'm probably getting 50 to 60 hours a week of work. And the schedule varies. And I'm fortunate because the people who are in patrol, who are like the people going to all the emergencies, those people are working incredible amount of hours, 70 hours. Everyone's short staffed, so people have to come in on their days off. It's kind of a nightmare when it comes to work hours.
Okay,
your tolerance for excuses must be very low.
Yeah.
hence why, because I mean, you guys know I have a big client base, and I was like, who do I get on here to illustrate very specific points? Ryan resonated with me very much because of this reason. So 12-hour days as a minimum, oftentimes a lot more than that. How do you, I mean, because you're not just like, hey, I want to get in shape. I kind of want to have some outlines of abs. Our goal, and it is still very much our goal, is for you to become a natural pro. So you have to be ticking every box in a very meticulous way. how do you make sure that you're always getting in your training sessions over a weekly basis, getting in your steps, cardio? How are you ticking those boxes with that schedule that you're working?
For me, I just find time. So I start work at 6:30. So I set my alarm clock for 3:30, and I go to the gym before I go to work. I try to walk around work. So rather than the convenience of bringing food and keeping it in my office, I'll make sure I'll put my food in the refrigerator, so I have to walk to and from there. I do as much walking as I can at work, and when I don't, I actually bought a walking treadmill. I've gone through two. I actually burned one of them out.
Yeah, you did.
But you just got to show up. I think you just got to show up for yourself. When you go to the gym, have a plan. So I'll go to the gym so early because I need to get my walking in. Fortunately, I don't have any like active cardio right now.
Yeah,
but
during
I'll get my
prep
yeah.
you did, and even if you didn't, your steps were high.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I think that I have to give myself a little bit of rollover sometimes where I'll do a high step count for a day because I know tomorrow is going to be like a day where I ride a motorcycle at work, and some days we're on our motorcycle for like the whole 10-hour shift if it's like an escort or a funeral or something. So I won't get my steps in. So I got to try to get them in the day before, day after.
Yeah.
Or I find myself walking at nighttime.
I'm looking at your sheet right now, like, June, July, early stages of August, there were times that you were averaging, based on your goal, 13,000 steps a day, 14, 15, 16, 17. And, that range where like some days you were getting well over 20,000, some days maybe you're only getting 11, but you, like you did with your macros, budgeted that over the course of the week. Be like, hey, today's a little bit higher, tomorrow might be a little bit lower, but you always hit that average. You always did it with a very intense work schedule. Point is that if you want to do it, you're always going to be able to find a way to do it.
Yeah, and I think that if you pay attention to what you're being coached towards, and like for me, you're my mad scientist. Like everything you've given me, like I give full trust, and I'll see. The one thing I always tell people is there was a time where my GI tract was messed up, and I didn't even know it was messed up. And you're like, hey, I don't know if you know, but your GI is kind of messed up. You need to. That's when we switched to pumpkin.
Yeah,
dude, and I lost like 3 pounds in one day.
Yeah, and
I felt better in one day. So I think that just realizing that if realizing that this is for me and everything else that I do is for work, like what I do for me is important. So getting my steps in, I can get my steps in. And really my focus is I have to go give myself completely to work. So when it's my time to fill out my sheet, like I know what my goals are, and this is for me. I have to just make that adjustment throughout the day. If it means getting up earlier, great. I know I shouldn't, but sometimes on the back end, I'm up late just getting my activity in, and then it suffers the sleep's cut. Either I'm going to screw my sleep over in the morning, or I'm going to screw it over at night, and I know it's important. So that's the hardest budget for me, is the sleep aspect of it.
These are well, yeah, because you only have so many hours in a day, and these are at times the compromises that you need to make. I had a gentleman say to me the other day, and rightly so, because I think it is the correct narrative, where it's saying, hey, but listen, man, like, the whole vibe that I was hearing about tracking macros and this is that it's sustainable. And he's like, I don't feel like this is sustainable to me because, I don't like some of the foods that I'm eating, and I'm hungry some of the time, and I'm tired some of the time. The point is, like, the big picture is about sustainability. But if you're in a fat loss phase or a contest prep, by definition, those periods of time aren't meant to be sustainable. They're meant to only be transient. And you need to understand that you just have to sustain it to a point where you achieve your goal, or sustain it to a point where it's like, wow, this is becoming really difficult for me to manage and be consistent with, and then take a break and take a step back, and then you can get back at it. But achieving any kind of elite level of body composition, or even just an admirable level of body composition, the process to get there isn't supposed to be sustainable. It's supposed to be to get there in a way that allows you to sustain it in the future. Really.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny, Pat, if you have anything, I'll talk all day long.
No. Please, go ahead. I'm listening. I'm very in tune with the conversation because
Pet's co-host. Okay. Pet's co-host. Ryan is the star of the episode.
But it's funny because we use this term sustainability, and people are afraid of sustainability, meaning I don't know how long I can endure this. But really, the sustainability is like, how long are you going to live? And I don't know if you're talking about like a lifestyle client or like a competitor, but yeah, if you're worried about sustainability, I love the term peasant calories, like when you're on peasant calories or peasant macros.
Macros, bikini girl macros, poverty macros.
Yeah. Because that's not sustainable. You're not supposed to sustain that. That's actually when you get into the granules of rice and like the one little shred of chicken, and that's your whole like day's macros. You should be proud of yourself because you're almost there.
Yeah.
You should know like this is not sustainable, and that's why we celebrate peak week. It's because, dude, we've fucking made it. And I sustained something. I made it through the desert, and here I am. Coming into the oasis. Yeah, the oasis side of it. But what's funny is for the lifestyle, you're giving them sustainability. And it's not about, I'm not going to be able to sustain this. It's like, hey, I'm giving you the recipe to be sustained for life. And I'm not expecting you to, especially if it's like an American client, because our portion sizes are so giant, and we're expected, you have this plate and you're expected, you don't want to disrespect the chef or the cook or whoever's giving you that portion. So you got to eat it all. But sustainability is, the chef doesn't care how much food you eat. He's just giving you food. He just wants you to eat and satisfy yourself.
Regardless.
Yeah, you're paying for it regardless. And that's actually very symbolic also. But I think that the term sustainability is important because when people say, I can't sustain this, yeah, you're right. You can't. That's why it's important that you do it.
Yeah.
So that you can sustain life a little bit better.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. It's like you want the lifestyle to be sustainable, but you have acute periods of time when you're trying to get from this point to this point that are not sustainable, but are designed to set you up for sustainability in the future. That's really what it's about. But
just going back to more metaphors. Sorry, just going back to more metaphors, and it's one that you used, in another podcast that we did about the whole someone who wants to get a degree, but then when they get there, they're like told they need to study, and it's like, no shit, dude, you do have to study if you
study. Oh no, this isn't worth it.
But at the same time, like, not the entire academic year is going to be assignments and exams, right? You can have periods of learning, and then high intensity periods where you have to be studying for exams and, handing in assignments and all of that. But then after that period, once we've assessed you, you then go back into a period of, learning and education again, where it's more consistent. But either way, you're elevating your knowledge and elevating from where you were in the beginning to where you're going to be at the end. And, here we go with more metaphors. But guys, the concept is simple. It's not going to be easy for you to get to where you want to go, because unfortunately the world we live in is steering us in a direction where we have global obesity crisis, and people have, unfortunately, the convenience that we've been afforded has sort of put us on the back foot, and now we have to do more than we've been accustomed to get out of that hole and live healthier, better, more fulfilling lifestyles.
100%.
Yeah, and I think what's also important is we wouldn't be speaking to each other if I could do it on my own. So if you were giving me something that I didn't think was sustainable, I didn't know how to do it in the first place. So I have to kind of give you the trust of this is sustainable. And I mean, who's signing up for coaching or lifestyle or bodybuilding or whatever if they're on like the verge of dying from being famished anyways? Like sustainability, I mean, you're really saying that you don't have the commitment to yourself, and you it's just getting hard. Hard is relative, because the day after tomorrow, what's hard today isn't hard the day after tomorrow because you completely forgot about it. And for me, it's some of this process has been very hard, but then when I look in the mirror or like walk past my reflection, I'm like, dude, it was so worth having this little pain in my stomach for the day. Or like, it's not even a pain in the stomach, it's a mind game. It's like your brain's telling you need that thing, you need that sugar, and you don't need sugar. I mean, you do a little bit, but
you don't need everyone needs a little bit of sugar.
hey, Sour Patch Kids have carbs.
Hey, listen, man, I use all the Sour Patch Kids in my off season. It's the best way to get in carbs, no fat. I love it. But the take home message that I think you guys actually illustrated the points a lot better than I did. But the main thing that I wanted to get out of this is like for all the new people, all the people that are pumped and excited about either being a part of this Pro Physique Transformation Challenge, or all the new people that might not even be aware of the challenge, but come on board with me as a coach or any one of the other coaches on the team, is before you start, be fully aware of what it's going to take to undergo this process successfully. Don't go to college and think that you don't have to study to get a degree. Don't come into this process and think that you don't have to make certain sacrifices to get to that body composition goal. Be prepared for it, but also understand that there are people out there like Ryan that work longer hours, crazy shifts, lots of stress, lots of pressure, and they can find a way to get that shit done to the point where they can get on stage absolutely shredded. You can do it if you can certainly do the same thing and lose a couple pounds. There's no doubt about that. It's just a matter of take-home messages. You will find a way if it is important enough for you, important enough to you.
Definitely. It's okay if things are hard. Like, it's really, really okay for things to be difficult and for you to feel like, this is such a challenge. But getting on the other side of it, it's such a fulfilling feeling, for you to make it up, having those moments in the mirror where you're just like, oh yeah, I work for this. It's not just about how you look. How you look is a manifestation of what you've been able to accomplish throughout the journey, or not a realization of what you've been able to accomplish throughout this journey. So I think it's just, I wish I could give it to people. I wish I could give people a glimpse into what you're going to experience and show them what's on the other side, and then be like, you see what I showed you there? Okay, now, Men in Black here, we're going to wipe it. So now it's time for you to do the work, but giving them that feeling that they would have felt going through the journey.
Exactly. Yeah, I think what's funny is the hardest part is once you get to like a great physique or whatever, that's when it's harder to see the changes. But in the very beginning, like I'm jealous of the people in the beginning, because if they give themselves 1 month, if they don't look at themselves for 1 month, they'll see that 1 month time that they have changes. But if they're looking every single day, you become so blinded by your own perspective that you're like, oh man, I'm not seeing any changes. What's it worth? Not being able to eat the foods that I want to eat, because they're looking for some daily change. But like, if you look at, even from when I started my process with you, Matt, till today, there's a significant change in what I looked like. And to me, like that's what makes it worth it for me, because I wasn't really caring about the daily change. Like I noticed things were happening, but it wasn't until I looked at it later on where I was like, holy shit, this is an incredible transformation. But I feel like the advice I would give to people who are just starting is give it a full month. Take a picture today, maybe not even look at yourself for a full month. The scale that's a challenge because I get caught up. You start really like looking at the refined numbers because you go from like, for me, 161.1, no jokes. I go from 161.1 to like 162.4, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm a fat mess. But what are we talking about? We're talking about like a handful of ounces. We're not talking about pounds. But like the advice for the people in the beginning is don't look at it every single day. Give it a full month. Sustain it for 1 month. It's 1 month. How many months do we live? Sustain it for 1 month.
Give it everything for a month. Not a month of you half-assing it and like, I kind of did what I was supposed to do. Give it 100% for a month. And if you are not absolutely flabbergasted with what you can achieve in a month, then leave. Don't do it again. Go eat burgers and fries, whatever. But if you can truly say that you gave it 100% over that month, it'll work for everyone if they put in.
I want to say when we first started, like I was thin already. I was already light. And when you like looked at my data and then you gave me a plan, I want to say I lost like 4 to 6 pounds in the first like 2 weeks. And I was like, where the hell did this 4 to 6 pounds come from? I was like, in my mind, I was like, this has to be unhealthy.
I can tell you because I have all the data. You started at 176 and within a month you were at 168. So you lost 8 pounds in 4 weeks. And in the first 2 weeks, you lost 5 pounds.
Yeah. So I lost 5 pounds in 2 weeks when I was already a very light person. And I'm 6'1". So 6'1", 176 is thin already. And when you lose 5 pounds in 2 weeks, and I think I already had a pretty good amount of muscle. I've never had a good amount of money. I was like, oh man, I'm pretty shredded. And in 2 weeks, I lost 5 pounds. I was like, man, this process is working. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm addicted to it already. And now I'm down to like 162 yesterday. And that's after I've bounced back from a show a few weeks ago.
Yesterday, I'll tell you now. Yeah,
162.2.
But the awesome thing about it is when you started, we had you on like just around 2,000 calories a day, like 250 carb, 50 fat. Now you're eating 315, 300 carb, 55, 60 fat. So significantly 25, 30% more calories, but much leaner, more muscle. And that is not even the amount of food where you are now gaining. You're pretty much maintaining on that.
But I think the selling point is like, if we could do this ourselves, why did anybody even call you or sign up? Like you can't, maybe you can do it by yourself, but you need that outsider perspective and expertise and like years of experience to help you get over that plateau. Because if you reached out to a coach, you know that you need some form of help. So why aren't you letting people help you? It's like calling for a life ring when you're drowning and they throw it to you and you're like, I don't need to grab that. I know how to swim. Well, then why'd you call for help? Right. So I feel like if
this podcast is great.
Yeah, this is you came to the right person if you need metaphors and analogies. But I just feel like if people would commit 100% for a month and then look at themselves, they would see, not even look at the scale. It doesn't matter how much weight you've lost. It's where the weight has shifted from.
Yeah.
And I think people forget, like some of your clients probably don't understand, because I'm still wrapping my mind around it, is you may go from 160 to 159 in a week and a half, but that doesn't mean you didn't lose weight. That means you lost fat and you gained muscle. So you plussed and minused to the same weight. So if you look at yourself, you're going to see a change. So if after a month you're like, well, shit, I'm still the same weight, okay, well, let's look at your body composition now. Like, are you more muscular? Are you stronger? Can you walk 2 miles? Can you run a mile? When before you could barely make it through the walk to the kitchen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like we're trying to sell like multi-level marketing or, this like magic in a bottle type thing, when really we're so passionate about this because it works. It works if you work. It's like it's the only thing, and I keep telling people, it's the only thing in my life where I put in 100% and I get 100% out. Like there's nothing else, not money, not relationships, not work, not anything like that. You put in exactly what you get out. And if you're not getting something out, you just have to make a few adjustments and you will see that success. And if you've made adjustments and everything is in place, you probably aren't following it the way it's supposed to be followed. So we're not selling a magic potion or anything like that. It really does work because it's effective. It's simple thermodynamics that you can literally practice on your own body,
There you go.
And it's a weird society that we're in too, because I think once you get into this like culture of taking care of yourself and going through the same challenges that we all go through. I've turned to our Instagram thread or the Instagram group a number of times when I felt like shit. Like I was depressed. I was like, let me jump onto our Team Whites chat and see what people think, or just go on there so somebody can talk shit to me. And I think our community of athletes, it's a vibe that we're selling. It's not even selling. Like either you want to be a part of it or you don't. And once you get into it, it's like you're not really focused so much on, I don't know, the negativities. I mean, yeah, I get pissed every day when I deal with stuff at work, or the frustrations of like, man, laziness really bothers me a lot. And I think that it comes from exactly what I'm going through. It's like, hey, I'm putting in the work on and off duty. And you can't be lazy if you want to just like take care of yourself. And then here are people who are like, hey, I just need to take a little rest. And you're like, bro,
come on.
I hate the cheesy "I can rest when I'm dead" motto, but I think it's true. It's like, if you're being thrown a life ring, grab the life ring. And I think that people just need to trust for a month this process and commit to it. And it's like the timing of my profession. Like here it is. I don't know what time it is. It's like what? Almost 6 o'clock almost. Oh, it's 5:19. I had to wake up early to come like talk with you guys, but it's completely worth it because it's part of the process. And I could have easily said, yeah, I'm not available. And man, I got to get those 2 extra. Remember you told me I got to get those 2 extra hours of sleep. But I think it's important that people understand that you have to commit to it and budget and schedule and just understand the process.
That's awesome. Well, I think that's a good transition to an ending. But thanks, guys, because that illustrated for people that haven't done this before, or are like, I don't know how to do this accurately. I don't know what it takes. I don't know if I'm capable. This is going to be the video that I send to those people. All right. So thank you, guys. Awesome conversation. And Ryan, you're actually an awesome guest. So we're definitely going to have you on again if you'd be down for it, brother. Always
down. This is far exceeded my expectations. I was a little nervous, but anytime.
You actually didn't come across the nerves at all. You did awesome. So thanks, guys. Episode done. Love it. And chat to everyone soon.
All right. Have a great day.
Bye.
See you later.